Come to DSW for the shoes, stay for the fun. Because, let's be honest, if shoe shopping isn't fun, are you even doing it right? So go ahead, try something new. Try something different. Good different. Try something that feels like you. You know, the real you. And then definitely brag about it later. Because at DSW, you've got unlimited freedom to play. Find the shoes that get you at prices that get your budget at DSW stores or at DSW.com. Let us surprise you.
Full bore into the Major League postseason. The Minor League Baseball podcast returns to your phone, computer, mobile device, tablet, wherever you get the Minor League Baseball podcast. The show before the show. Hi, everybody. I'm Tyler Mon. He's Sam Dykstra. Hi, Sam.
Hi, Tyler.
What is up?
Not much. Let's just say everything's coming to people's brains.
Yeah.
Let's pretend it's somehow getting to their, it's going through their ears into their brains.
No matter what.
However you're listening there, thank you for inviting us into your headspace.
We're infecting you.
Yeah.
The brain stem. This is the 29th edition of the show before the show. I'm Tyler. He's Sam. As I said, we are recording on Arizona Fall League opening day today, which is Tuesday, October 13th. So happy opening day to those of you excited about the AFL, of which we are certainly among that crowd. We got some AFL talk coming up later on in the show. Here's what else we have in the show today. Oakland Athletics guest coach Justine Siegal will join the show. Justine, the very first woman to throw batting practice to a major league team, which she did back in 2011. This year, a guest instructor for the Oakland A's in instructional league work, which is going on right now in Arizona. Really, really cool to get a chance to talk to Justine. That'll be coming up here in just a short bit. And as always, you can find the show before the show on iTunes. You can rate, review, and subscribe to the show before the show podcast there. We've also got an RSS feed, which you can find at MILB.com. We've got all of our episodes, and we're all over the place. So rate, review, subscribe, and let us know what you think of the Minor League podcast. And with that, let's get started. Strike number one for this week's edition of Three Strikes. We're a few weeks removed from the end of the Minor League Baseball season. The AAA championship game, of course, late last month, which means that organization all-star stories have started rolling out, and we've already got 4 up on the site, with a few more coming this week. We're going in alphabetical order. Sam just came out with his Boston Red Sox story, but we've got all kinds of stuff up so far. Arizona Diamondbacks, Atlanta Braves, Baltimore Orioles, the Red Sox, the White Sox will be coming up later on this week. That's my story, or the first of our stories for the Org All-Stars. And Sam, just give us some of the guys who you've noted so far through these first handful of stories with Org All-Stars.
Yeah, the way I kind of want to go about this is just kind of, like you said, we've got, I think, 4 lists out right now. I just kind of want to go through who the guys of the system are, capital G guys, who are the guys who really stood out. Won't necessarily call them MVPs, but in terms of, who had the best years and who kind of surprised us. There are certainly guys, not necessarily breakout prospects, but guys who we weren't necessarily talking about in April. Didn't think they would have the years they did, and now are what we call organization all-stars. Just something to kind of highlight with these pieces. We do them every year, or we've done them for the past couple of years, at least since I've been here. These are guys who we're not naming the best prospects in every system. We're just talking about who had the best year. So you could be 35, a quad A player playing in AAA, but if you were the best third baseman in the organization, we will see that you're recognized. That's just the way we do things. We like to focus on the minors as a whole, so we don't leave guys out based on whether they've graduated prospect status or age or anything like that. So for me, kind of just starting along here with the D-backs, Josh Jackson did the piece for us, and his headliners were Peter O'Brien and Aaron Blair. I kind of agree with him there. Peter O'Brien, first full year, played a lot of games over there in Reno. Showed plenty of power there, knocked in a franchise record 107 runs, and also hit 26 homers and 35 doubles, and obviously an offensive-rich environment over there in Reno in the PCL. Aaron Blair, climbed all the way to AAA, played half the season at Mobile, half the season at Reno, went 13-5, 2.92 ERA. These are both guys we expected to kind of thrive at the upper levels. They were going to get their chances to get tested at those levels, and they did well there. But a guy who kind of stood out, the guy who had a better year than I thought. I think we've talked about him in the podcast before. Isan Diaz with Missoula. He was the Pioneer League MVP, hit 360 with a 436 OBP, 12 homers, 12 steals. This is a guy who hasn't played a full season yet, was a little bit of a high pick. He's a competitive balance pick last year, drafted out of Springfield, Mass., which is my neck of the woods where I grew up in Western Massachusetts. So I like to give him a shout out for that alone, but he really had a bigger year than what maybe we were expecting. Certainly didn't hit all that well in the Arizona League last year, first year after his draft year. Had a nice breakout year there for the D-backs. Kind of moving on to the Braves, the guys of the system there, Zeno Albies. I'm just gonna call him Ozzy. A lot of people in the industry call him Ozzy.
He speaks like 17 languages, so I'm sure however you say it, it's probably correct in one of them.
Right, Ozzy's just more fun to say.
Yeah, definitely. It's a good baseball name too.
It's a great baseball name, especially for a shortstop. Ozzy Albies, had the year we kind of were expecting him to have with Rome. Young guy, hit really, really well there. Malik Smith, the guy who came over in the Justin Upson trade over from San Diego, performed really, really well. It was kind of funny. John Parker, one of the editors here at the site, wrote it. He toned down his running game slightly. This is a guy who has tons of speed. He's got plus speed as an outfielder. But he still stole 57 bases. I mean, that's just kind of the ceiling for him, is that he can steal tons of bases, and 57 steals is a little bit of a disappointment maybe based on previous performance for him. So those are the two guys that shine there in the Brave system. Kind of the surprise for me was Jonathan Morales, a catcher there. He was a 25th round pick in this year's June draft, but he hit 304, 377, 511 in 46 games in the GCL, first time playing with a wood bat. Braves assistant director of player development, Jonathan Sherholtz, had a couple of nice things to say about him, most notably that he's a leader. First year in the system, already taking on that role in the Gulf Coast League, so a lot of good things coming his way. We'll have to see what happens when he leaves the complex level. A lot of these guys, they do well there, playing against some really young guys, some recent draft picks, some guys coming from the Dominican and Venezuelan leagues. All of a sudden he went from just a 25th round pick to a guy we're going to have to actually keep an eye on going forward. In the Orioles system, guy of the system has to start with Trey Mancini. We've kind of talked about him at length, the breakout year he had. This is a good chance to plug Milby's. He's up for Offensive Player of the Year, up against some really, really big names, but the way he played at Bowie and Frederick this year really earned his spot there. The surprise for me, at least in terms of guys we didn't expect to see, was Oliver Drake. He was our pick for reliever. It was between him and Michael Givens, but the numbers he put up in Norfolk, and he got some time in Baltimore itself. 0.82 ERA was perfect, 23 for 23 in saves, held opponents to a 151 average, and struck out 66 in 44 innings. I mean, those are just insane numbers. That's going to put you on the map. And when you do it at the AAA level, as he did, that's going to put you on the map even further, get him a couple games, a dozen games with the Orioles. Now he's definitely an relieving arm that we're going to have to consider going forward. And lastly, my piece for the Red Sox. The Red Sox as a system this year, if you're looking wins and losses, we don't necessarily do that a heck of a lot until these end of the year pieces. Red Sox as a system had just a 477 winning percentage. The Gulf Coast League team was the only stateside team to qualify for its postseason. So after years of Red Sox doing really, really well as an organization in terms of wins and losses, that didn't happen this year. But you look at once you put together this all-star team, just how much talent was there, especially at the lower levels. Yohan Moncada, we talked about him at length, just the way he was able to turn around in the second half, really justifying his signing bonus, $31.5 million, and his place on prospect lists. He's number 8 overall. In the second half in 56 games, he had a 310, 415, 500 slugging percentage with 45 steals. So showed some nice pop with 7 homers. He's only going to grow into that. Rafael Devers had more power. Manuel Margot, continued to show lots of speed. So there's lots to like in this Red Sox system, even if you weren't rooting for the Red Sox. If you were a fan, you weren't rooting for them in their particular postseasons. We've talked a little bit about Andrew Benintendi plenty of this year. Two guys for me in that system to look at going forward. Mauricio Dubon, I put him as a utility player just because the way the roster worked out in Greenville, there was just so many infielders there between Moncada, Javier Guerra, who's also on this list, Michael Chavez, who was a first-rounder last year, Rafael Devers, that before Moncada got there, they had Dubon at second. Once they moved him up to Salem, they moved him back to short. How that dynamic's going to work between him and Guerra. Guerra's a particularly really well-gifted defensive shortstop, but those two are going to kind of come up together. Dubon's got that time at second, got that time at short. The Sox are very high on him at both positions. They think he could be either one going forward, so we'll have to see how that shakes out. It's a good problem to have. And the other guy, again, a reliever, was Williams Jerez. This is just his second season as a full-time pitcher. They actually named him the minor league pitcher of the year, 2.54 ERA, 86 strikeouts, 88 2/3 innings as a left-hander. He was drafted as an outfielder in the second round in 2011, but they really liked his arm. One of those guys is, couldn't hit a lick, but the way he played defensively, the way he was showing an arm out there, they thought, we've invested a second-round pick in you. We want to give you more of a chance. Let's see how you handle, arm out of the bullpen, and he's really taken on that in his second year. Climbed all the way up to Double-A Portland, and Ben Crockett, the director of player development there with the Sox, says the transition has been one that continues to build momentum. So they think that's going to go forward into this winter, going forward next year as he probably starts again in Portland and tries to crack Pawtucket and even the Sox.
That is the crazy thing when you look at those Red Sox listings. I mean, all the guys, it seems like virtually everybody came through Greenville and Salem at some point this year. I mean, that's how loaded that system is right now at the relatively lower levels. I mean, Class A Advanced is only 3 steps from the big league, so that's not the lowest level. But when you have that much talent in Class A and in Class A Advanced, that seems to suggest that the future is going to be pretty bright, because as those guys, even as they start to hit those weed-out levels at Class A Advanced and Double-A, the more that you have of them at the lower levels, the more confident you are that a lot of them are going to continue to climb together and graduate eventually. One of the things that I think, and I agree with all the guys you pointed out as the standouts in these lists, and you very accurately noted, I mean, our awards for Organization All-Stars, not based on prospect status, nothing like that. It's who had the best season throughout a system. And I think that's very important to note, because I always find it very cool when you see some of those veteran guys who maybe haven't gotten an extended look at the high levels of minor league baseball or cracked the big leagues to any lengthy extent, but still get that recognition. And it seems like virtually in all of the systems that we've had so far, there are those guys at least. For the Arizona Diamondbacks, Jamie Romack has been in the PCL every year since 2012. He spent some time in the Dodger system, made it up with them, but has spent a lot of time as one of those quote-unquote 4A guys, but has been very successful in being a productive AAA hitter. He got some time up with Arizona this year, led the PCL with 27 homers. I thought that was very cool. Joey Terdoslavich is not an old guy, but has been around for a little while for Braves fans, trying to figure out what really to make of him going forward. Set the Carolina League record for most doubles in a season a few years back. Has just been a productive hitter everywhere that he's gone. He's 27. He's been at a whole bunch of different levels this year because of injury, but spent the majority of his time with AAA Gwinnett. He's the Braves utility player. Quincy Lattimore, an outfielder in the Orioles system. Lattimore's had a crazy career as well. Initially drafted by the Pirates, spent some time with the Indians, spent some time in independent ball. Now he's back with the Orioles. This year really broke out, hit 20 homers at Double-A, batted .274. That was very cool. I've got a White Sox story coming up later on in the week this week. And even there was a guy whose name is probably familiar to a lot of people who have watched that system for a while, but Christian Marrero, who spent some time away from the White Sox, back with the White Sox this year, 129 games at Double-A Birmingham. He slashed .282, .390, .431, batted cleanup for 122 of those games. I mean, he's a 29-year-old guy in Double-A, but at the same time, he put together a productive season, the likes of which wasn't really matched elsewhere by a lot of other outfielders in that system. And so it's cool to get those guys some recognition. That's one of my favorite things about the Organization All-Star stories.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is that we don't really go out of our way one way or another. We could go out of our way to recognize guys who have been in there a long time, or we could go out of our way to go prospects. I mean, we all get to choose our own list. There's our broad factor is, though, who had the best year at the position.
Right.
And so that's what we're trying to do here, is award those guys. And somebody like Christian Marrero, it's great when that is the case, and we can reward those guys who are persevering and coming back, and even no matter what the level, if they put up the numbers, they'll get the awards.
So head over to MILB.com and check out the organization All-Star Stories. We've got more coming up this week. We've got the full calendar of who will be released and when. Later on this week, we've got the White Sox coming up, and then rolling through the rest of the American League Central, a couple more next week, and then on into November. And we're just throwing them all out at you fast and furious. So it's this is going to be a ton of fun for us to watch as these generate some conversation, because these are some of the most fun stories we get to do all year. So head to MILB.com and check out the 4 that we've got up right now and the ones that are coming up later on in the week. Strike 2, as we noted, it is Arizona Fall League opening day today, which we're recording on Tuesday the 13th, and this is almost the funnest time of the year for just full-on prospect nerds, because Prospect Christmas is like when the Arizona Fall League rosters are released, and now you get to see that play out. And there are so many talented rosters this year. I mean, what are some of the things that are standing out to you this year, Sam? It's not really what we saw last year with all the different rules changes, with the pitch clocks, with the between inning clocks. There was a lot of focus on that stuff last year, and that'll tie into Strike 3 this week. But the rule stuff isn't really at the forefront this year. It's kind of, we're just talking a lot about prospects this year. Yeah,
we get to focus a lot on the rosters, and kind of the fun thing about doing this on AFL opening day is that games are happening right now as we're talking. And earlier today, Gary Sanchez, a guy who had a really nice bounce back year, is becoming more and more of a prospect once again in the Yankee system. Homered in his first at bat for Surprise. Hit a 3-run shot off Braves prospect Lucas Sims, who's playing for Peoria. So we're already seeing some of those returns in today's games. The Glendale lineup right now is let me name some of the guys who are in the lineup today. These are not just hypothetical lineups. These are guys who are actually playing right now. J.P. Crawford is playing shortstop. A.J. Reed is playing first base after hitting third behind J.P. Crawford. Austin Meadows is playing center. Astros prospects J.D. Davis and Derek Fisher are playing third base and right field. That's just a stacked lineup right now. Today we're already seeing it. They're up 4-1 over Mesa as we speak. When you hear this podcast, you'll know the final result better than we will right now, but we're already seeing some of the returns on some of these really, really packed lineups, and some of the guys, we were excited to see when we first talked about rosters a couple weeks ago.
It's like a minor league all-star game every single night. It's like exactly. 3 minor league all-star games every single night in the AFL. The AFL is so much fun to watch. And there are, I think, kind of those stepping stone moments in the Arizona Fall League where you really realize, all right, this guy's got a chance to be something. I just the other day looking through some of the guys who have gone through just in the most recent seasons, and Roberto Osuna stuck out to me. Last year didn't get a whole lot of work during the season, but went off to the AFL, was a Fall Star there, was named to their All-Star game, and this year's edition of the Fall Stars will be coming up on November 4th. But it is a loaded league that sometimes separates guys from, is this guy a prospect, to, yeah, this guy's on the way. And now you look at Osuna, he's closing out games at the major league level at 20 years old for the Blue Jays. That's kind of the stepping stone a lot of the time that the AFL provides. I'm really interested to see what guys like A.J. Reed can do, Austin Meadows. I mean, some of these prospects who we know what they've been able to accomplish in season, but what is that going to look like when you're facing even a little bit more advanced pitching from night to night in the AFL? And furthermore, when you're at the end of a very long season. I mean, obviously these guys have gotten to rest a little bit, but like when we talked to A.J. Reed, he had just gotten done with I think he said like an 18-hour drive home, and was just looking to rest up and be okay for a few days before you got to go out and lace it up and do it all over again. So the way guys respond to that will be really interesting to me. Sean Manaea is going to get some work in, first-round pick by the Orioles in 2013, of course, traded to the A's this year. Came off of an injury this season and threw very, very well for AA Midland in their run to a Texas League title. He's a lefty who is probably a little bit behind in innings right now, was at one time looked at as the top talent in the draft in 2013, slipped a little bit due to injury, but really came on strong toward the end of the year. Very similar story to him as Kyle Freeland in the Rockies organization. Same thing, started the year injured, finished really strong. He'll get his first start tomorrow, as will Manaea. So there's so many storylines in the AFL that you don't really see elsewhere in these prospect leagues, because if you send somebody off to play in the Dominican Republic or Venezuela or Mexico or Australia or wherever, those guys are getting their work in, but they're kind of doing it on a more relaxed basis. You get to throw guys into the AFL and test them against the best of the best around them. That's what makes it so fascinating. It gets that competitive side of guys flowing, I think, unlike a whole lot of other offseason work.
Yeah, and the amount of guys we've talked to who say, it is my goal to be in the Futures game
absolutely.
And get that call to the Fall League. I mean, they're aware of what this moment is, whether it's just proving yourself against better prospects or putting yourself on that stage where there are so many scouts who go to these games. I mean, sometimes you see pictures that are not necessarily well attended by major fans, but the amount of scouts that are there, the amount of eyes, talent evaluators, all of a sudden you go from just a guy who did well in the California League to a legit prospect. The guy who was the AFL MVP, you were talking before about Roberto Ozuna, kind of stood out to you last year. Greg Bird had a great year in the AFL last year. And now, all of a sudden, at the end of the year, through Mark Teixeira's injury, but he was a key piece for the Yankees on their march to the postseason. So this is not just, if you can perform in the AFL, it doesn't put up more question marks. It answers a lot of questions about these guys, and that's what we kind of pay attention to. And kind of something we're going to be doing a little different this year on the site. We're going to be doing AFL notebooks.
Yes.
Where we're going to be focusing on specific organizations and who they sent to the Fall League, and how at a certain point at the beginning of the year, it's going to be why they're there, and then as the year evolves, or as the season evolves, how they've done and how they've reacted to that environment. So that's something that we're looking forward to writing, and we're hopefully you guys are looking forward to reading and us talking about more here on the podcast.
That's going to be a lot of fun. It'll be cool for us to kind of cover it in a different light from what we've done over the last couple of seasons. And it'll be interesting to talk to those guys a little bit more in-depth in season as to what it's like to be down there, because it's a really unique thing for prospects. And like you said, I mean, so many guys aspire to it. It'll be neat to get the reaction while that's actually in progress. And Strike 3 this week is something that kind of spun out of the Arizona Fall League from 2014. Pitch clocks. Sam has an outstanding story in the Toolshed column up this past week on pitch clocks and the way that I kind of described it like this in a tweet the other day from the MILB account. They sort of came in like a lion and went out like a lamb. It was the biggest story going into the minor league season. And then like by the end of April, everybody had forgotten about the pitch clocks because everything worked well.
Right. Yeah. Well, that was the thing, is that there was a month for everybody to get used to it. And it was, umpires would just give them warnings, say, listen, you haven't thrown it yet. Normally I would give you a ball, but for that first month until May 1st, is when the penalties started to kick in. And at that point, everybody really had grown used to it. Just poring over these numbers when I was putting them together, minor league baseball as a whole, that means every league, every level, every team, as a big umbrella, minor league baseball cut games by 6 minutes this year. In 2014, average time of game was 2 hours and 49 minutes. This year, it was 2 hours and 43 minutes. I believe that was the shortest average since 2007. So we're talking about a long time now. And there was a stretch there, obviously, where the game was kind of going, everybody needs to slow it down, do your routine. And now we're kind of getting into, let's not speed it up, but let's, get ready, let's get moving. Just because that makes for a slightly more enjoyable fan experience, I think. But in terms of pitch clocks, the AAA and AA leagues where these pitch clocks were put into place, average game times dropped by a full 12 minutes, so a fifth of an hour. In 2014, AAA and AA games were on average going 2 hours and 54 minutes. This year, they were at 2 hours 42 minutes. And just as kind of a control, if you were thinking like, well, maybe that's a number of different things that can go into that, all other leagues that I kind of kept track of only saw average game times go down by 1 minute. So if it didn't have a pitch clock, we only saw a minute chopped off. If there was a pitch clock, on average, 12 minutes was chopped off.
That is fascinating.
That's a significant amount of time. You may think that's 12 minutes, but then you start adding that up per game that's going on in every AAA and AA league. That's a lot of time saved. And for this Toolshed piece, I got to talk to Lucas Giolito, friend of the pod, a guy who has been very grateful for us talking about this stuff, and he was very, forthcoming with it. He made his AA debut July 28th. At that point, everybody at the level should be used to it. He's going from Class A advanced where they don't have the pitch clock to Double A where they do. And I asked him, what was that transition like? And he's like, well, you see them. You see the big clocks. You know what they are. But for me, who's kind of a fast pitcher, this is Giolito talking, for him, it didn't make a difference. I mean, you get the ball, you throw it, it's fine. If you go through your normal routine, everything is fine. It's for the longer guys who need to scratch every orifice, so they need to do all these things. It was more geared for them. So for the average pitcher, it didn't matter. For the other ones, that obviously had an effect and kind of sped up games. And then the cool thing was I got to talk to Commissioner Rob Manfred, and he said, they were obviously very encouraged by the results. Wasn't about to get into specifics about whether Major League Baseball is going to start looking into this for next year or, anytime soon. He kept bringing up that it's going to be the result of negotiations with the Players Association. And that's not necessarily collective bargaining. We don't have to wait for the next CBA cycle. It's more, according to the CBA, if there's going to be major rule changes, Major League Baseball has to negotiate that with the Players Association before putting it in. If the Players Association gives its go-ahead or tries to negotiate it, work out some things, maybe it's 25 seconds instead of 20, something like that, then it can be implemented immediately. If Players Association does not agree to negotiations, then the league has to give them a year ahead of time, or a year advance notice. So what would happen was, if somehow they can't work it out this offseason to put in pitch clocks for next year, and Major League Baseball definitely wants to do it, they would have to say, listen, for the 2017 season, we're definitely going to do it. Here's your 1 year advance notice. So we'll see how that kind of goes. Talking to a bunch of players about this, they all seemed encouraged. They all said like it didn't make a difference playing wise. As much as people kind of want to be curmudgeonly and think like, oh, it's bringing a time clock to the timeless game. It is working, and I think we can all agree. Quicker games are, as long as it's not speeding it up, as long as it's not making it 5-inning games, so we can all get out there earlier. If it's doing its job like this, chopping off 12 minutes, it's working. So it was encouraging this first year, and we'll see where it goes from here.
Really interesting, too. Just 10 minutes ago, a White Sox prospect blog, FutureSox.com, just tweeted, Game Day shows Adam Engel, who actually is one of the players that I covered in the White Sox organization All-Star story this week, started at bat with a, quote, automatic strike, unquote. Anyone there in Glendale who can tell us what that was about? And I'm assuming that's a pitch clock violation, because at-bats can start with automatic strikes or automatic balls handed out for violations. They can continue that way as well with violations. So you kind of see it working, and Adam Engel's a guy who hasn't worked with those before. He was in Class A Advanced all season this year, so welcome to the AFL, kid. This is how it goes here. But, it works, obviously.
Right.
It's doing the job.
Right, and there's also the keeping your at least 1 foot in the batter's box, so that could have been it too.
That's true, too.
He could have gotten in, gotten out, and didn't mean to do that, and it's an automatic strike. So
the little jig that players do now, trying to keep a foot in.
Right, exactly. So it could be just a trial by fire. I mean, the Fall League is a place for experimentation. Nothing, at least that we've seen, that's as crazy this year. Being tried out as crazy as pitch clocks were last year. But it is a place for experimentation. So this is somewhere we always look to see how players handle this new environment.
So all kinds of cool stuff going on in Arizona for the Fall League and instructional leagues in progress and wrapping up, and we've got a very cool conversation to get to right now. Justine Siegal, a coach in the Arizona League, or in the instructional league in Arizona for the Oakland Athletics, a lady who has done a whole lot of cool stuff in baseball to this point and is really just getting started. We're going to talk with Justine about her role with the A's and a whole lot more. Baseball for All, helping out with the International Baseball Federation, all the stuff that she does teaching at Northeastern University. Some very, very interesting stuff coming up with Justine Siegal here on episode number 29 of the Show Before the Show. We are absolutely thrilled with our guest for episode number 29 of the Show Before the Show podcast. Justine Siegal is the first woman to throw batting practice to a major league team. She did that for the Cleveland Indians in 2011, later the Oakland Athletics, the Tampa Bay Rays, the St. Louis Cardinals, the New York Mets, and the Houston Astros. She's coached at the college and the professional levels in the men's game, a 2011 graduate of the MLB Scout School Development Program. She's chair of the Women's Commission for IBAF, that's the International Baseball Federation, PhD in sports psychology from Springfield College. She's the director of Sports Partnerships for Sport and Society, a center at Northeastern University, founder of Baseball for All, a nonprofit organization dedicated to providing opportunities to girls in baseball, and most importantly, out of that mouthful for our purposes, is a coach this season in instructional league play for the Oakland Athletics. Justine Siegal joins the 29th edition of the Show Before the Show podcast. And Justine, just kind of take us through how you got to this point in your career and being able to help out with the A's this year in Instructs in Mesa, Arizona.
I was 13 when I was told that my coach said he didn't want me on his baseball team because I was a girl. And despite being shortstop of the team when I was 12, that was a moment where I realized not everyone was going to be supportive. And that was also the moment where I realized I was never going to quit baseball. I just loved the game, and I knew that being a girl was not a really good reason not to play it. So that's when I sort of really got even more involved. And at 16, I decided I wanted to be a college baseball coach, in which I was immediately laughed at because I was told that a man would never listen to a woman on a baseball field. So I decided when I was 16 I was going to prove that guy wrong and get a PhD so that I could, if I didn't have the same professional playing opportunities, I could at least provide an educational element in sports psychology to the team. And for me, I think that a coaching staff it's best when there's diversity, when you can offer different kinds of things. If everyone has the same expertise, then that's not your best staff. And I think that I've been really fortunate to work at the college and pro level now, just bringing another element to the game, another element that helps these players get better.
I think one of the things that a lot of people don't realize, especially in the U.S., is that women's baseball is huge globally, huge. And the United States has a very, very good team that I think flies a little bit under the radar. But the U.S. women's national team won gold at the Pan Am Games this year. They beat Canada in the gold medal game 11-3. But women's baseball, there are a lot of female athletes out there who don't want to get pushed into softball. They want to play baseball. And internationally, in Japan and Korea and Australia and Cuba, there are massive women's baseball programs. For you to continue to stick to baseball, have you seen already the message that inspires in other girls and other younger athletes who are able to now see somebody who goes on and makes a career out of that and thinks, yeah, I think I could follow that path?
Yeah, it's really humbling to be a role model, and I'm really grateful for that opportunity. And I started the National Nonprofit Baseball for All, for girls who want to play baseball or learn to umpire or coach, any way they want to get involved in the game. They now have a community of people to support them. And last year we held our first nationals, which was, 12 teams of girls, 12 and 13 years old, all just playing baseball. And no one there telling them they have to quit and play softball. So they're just playing the game they love. And we're going to do that again in San Francisco this year. But it's really amazing because these girls love the game so much, and yet every time they get to the field, someone says, hey, you should play softball. And, I think that to tell a girl she can't play baseball, what else is she going to think she can't do? And it's the best game on earth, so why not play it?
There's some really fascinating numbers on your website, which is baseballforall.com. We'll talk about this more here in a little bit, but it says 100,000 girls play youth baseball, but only about 1,000 go on to play high school baseball. And it's not like the other 99,000 just got to their freshman year of high school and thought, I don't really like baseball anymore. And so that's kind of the challenge, is figuring out avenues to let those girls continue to try playing baseball at higher levels and continue following those dreams. And again, we'll talk about that a little bit more here in a minute, but let's dive into your work with the Athletics. You obviously in 2011 got some experience with major league clubs, and I know you struck up a relationship a little bit with Billy Beane at that time. And what was the process to get you involved with the A's now and bring you on as a guest coach for Instructional League this year?
Well, I've been talking to the A's now. I see Billy Beane at the winter meetings every year and just, say, hey, how's it going? And, he knew I wanted to do Instructs, and so this was the year when I asked, and it just made sense that this would be the year. And here I am. It's really kind of incredible. And I really love working with the guys. And you talk about long days. I'm up at 5 because we got to be at the field at 6. I don't think people realize how much work actually goes into the game and how many ground balls those guys take. And there's got to be a coach there hitting them. So it's a full day, and it's I'm just really thankful for the A's for believing in me and realizing that I could contribute to the team.
for the people who don't know, Instructional League is almost like a fall version of a mini spring training for a lot of guys. And guys who, teams think need additional work, or they need to get some more at bats, or they're coming off of an injury, that type of thing. Like you said, I mean, people don't get how much work goes into it. You're on the field at 6 in the morning, guys are taking hacks, or taking ground balls, or doing all that kind of stuff. What is a typical day like for you and for the players? And how would you, if you had to describe Instructs to somebody who's never really encountered that before, how would you explain what you're doing in Arizona right now to them?
The men are players that the organization wants to work with, so they're from different minor league teams and have been brought in for the month, and they're all working on different elements of the game. So we start our day with our coaches meeting at 7:00, and we review, and then we have different meetings after that with players. So maybe you're a pitcher who's looking over video, maybe you're just your hitters, and you're sort of going over what happened in the last game and what's our approach this game. After that, there's early work. I do a lot of work with the infielders. So we were just practicing, how do we want to approach first and second? There's so many different elements to the game. And whether it's defensively or offensively, you think you know the game because you've been playing it for so long, and yet there's always one more thing to learn. And then after we do our work, we break for lunch at about 11, and then we play another instructional team from one of the other organizations around here in Phoenix.
One of the neatest things is seeing the way that the guys have reacted to you already. I mean, there's players. I know the other day you retweeted James Terrell III, who's a player in this system, who said, quote, "First woman coach in baseball. What a blessing. She's the best." And you've got pictures with the guys, from day to day when you guys are getting set to do work. What has their embrace of you been like? I mean, especially to your entire life be told no guys are going to listen to a female coach or somebody who wants to help them out on a baseball field. To see the way that these guys obviously are really rallying around you, and not only that, but learning from you on a day-to-day basis. What does that mean to you?
It's an incredible feeling. I have fought so hard every day. I mean, there's really no logical reason why I'm still standing. But I'm here, and, to go into your locker room and see your A's jersey just hanging there waiting for you to put on. And the guys have just been really receptive and amazing. And, when I say, can you guys take this picture with me? I mean, they all jumped up. There was no hesitation. They all wanted to be a part of it. And, it just really warms my heart. And I'm really enjoying this time.
Let me ask you about, this season has been very big for women in Major League Baseball. We know that there have been women in administrative roles. Kim Ng, obviously, is one of those trailblazers. There are some other pretty high-level baseball operations executives that are female around Major League Baseball. But this year, we've seen a lot of stuff, not just off the field in those types of capacities, but, in game broadcasts. Obviously, Jessica Mendoza has been huge, a big storyline over the last few weeks. Even to a little bit lesser extent, Jenny Cavnar, who's a member of the Colorado Rockies broadcast team, she did some play-by-play earlier this year, was the first female broadcaster to do that in the National League. And it's not just off the field in those capacities, but on the field this year, Melissa Mayu is a French shortstop who was the first woman, the first female player to be added to the international registration list. She could potentially be signed by a major league club as an international free agent now. To see those barriers falling and to see the access now that women are getting to some of these positions that, even 10 years ago would have been unheard of or unthinkable. For you to know that you've been a driving force behind that, what kind of impact does that have? When you see, you tweeted a picture the other day of a letter that you got, fan mail that you're getting now through the Athletics. How much of an impact are you able to feel like you've had? Do you get to carry that out and have that sense of pride when you go to the field day to day now?
Well, first, thank you. I don't think of myself sort of in those same ranks. I'm just sort of doing my job.
We'll say it for you.
There's also Dean Ackerman, who's the assistant GM of the Yankees. She's been there forever, doing incredible work. So, there's been pioneers before me, and I really just hope that as I'm moving forward, there's girls, behind me saying, hey, I can do this too. And also the guys can say, hey, it's not that odd having a female coach. And this is something that we could see, maybe not at the pro level everywhere, but you're also going to see at the youth level, where we have more women coaching and more girls playing. But it's always very humbling to get fan mail. And I had a father tweet saying that his daughter wanted to be me for Halloween. I don't know if it gets much better than that.
That's awesome.
So, it's really, for me, I know there's a lot of media and there's a lot of hype, but the story is not really about me. It's just about how much girls and women love this game, how they want to be involved, and the men that are going to, participate and be a part of it. One player to me said, that he loved that I was expanding the game. And he was a big fan of that idea. And I think we're just in this collective consciousness of, hey, this is the best game ever, so let's all get involved.
What is the next step from your perspective for Major League Baseball to continue bringing more, not just female fans, obviously, but women who want to play the game and who want to be involved in baseball, who want to scout, who want to work as umpires, who want to do that kind of stuff? What's the next step in that outreach from the organized baseball perspective, from the way that you view it now, having kind of seen it from both sides of this equation?
Well, I think supporting the grassroots efforts, just as Commissioner Manfred is doing with the One Baseball, our organization, Baseball for All, provides many of these opportunities. For example, at our nationals, we had all of the girls go through an umpire clinic. This way they're introduced to umpiring and they see it's their possibility to go ahead and take. So I just think the younger we get these kids, the more they're going to grow up fans and the more they're just going to participate in the game in general.
Justine Siegal is on Twitter, by the way. You can follow her at Justine Baseball. You can also follow Baseball for All, which is at Baseball for FOR_all. It's a 501c3 dedicated to continuing to provide opportunities and avenues, especially for girls in the game of baseball. And Justine, seeing all of these, the A's have so much young talent now, and we know kind of the transitional period they went through, especially in 2014, trying to contend, now really rebuilding that farm system. There's a lot of good talent in that Instructs program right now. Jacob Nottingham is a guy who a lot of people have an eye on. If you had to pick some of the guys who have really impressed you so far through Instructs, and for A's fans, some guys to keep an eye on going into the 2016 season, who's stuck out to you so far?
I love my guys. I'm not going to point all of them.
I guess you can't just pick one out when you're working with a group. That's true.
I'm not going to pick them out, but Nottingham is an exciting player, and there's a bunch of good guys I see going in the Major League. Well, not all of them, but you can see them. Good group. Watch out for the A's in the future. It's happening.
They're coming back. That system is so loaded, and this has been so cool for us, Justine. And again, we're all very much in awe of what you've been able to accomplish already, and very much in admiration of what you're doing right now with the A's, because it's not easy work. Instructs is not easy work. You hear players talk about how they're getting sent to instructional league, and it's like getting sent for after-school tutoring because you're so tired at the end of a long season, and you got to go do Instructs, and to have that love, to be there, waking up at 5 in the morning, getting to the field at 6, going through those workouts day to day, has got to be both exhausting, but I know it's got to be a dream come true to a certain extent for you as well, and still just kind of scratching the surface, obviously, of what we know to expect from you in years to come. And thank you so much for joining us and for all your work to this point. Congratulations on all the success. If people want to get involved with Baseball for All, and for some of the other causes that you're out promoting and working with, what's the best way for them to get information about that?
BaseballForAll.com. Perfect.
It is all there at baseballforall.com. You can learn about Justine there. You can learn about stuff in your area and ways to continue to provide meaningful opportunities and pathway in baseball for girls. And Justine, it's a day off for you, so go relax, do something that's not, hitting grounders. And thanks a ton for joining us, and hopefully we'll be doing it again in spring training.
All right, sounds good. Thanks for having me.
Continuing along our discussion of women in baseball, women in sports, Justine Siegal, so cool for us to talk to, and she is just one of many women who are doing really, really impressive things throughout the world of Major League Baseball and minor league baseball as we bring in Benjamin Hill for this week's edition of our Ben's Biz Banter. Welcome back to the show, Ben. Howdy.
Hey, I'm good. I'm the best woman in all of baseball.
So you've done a lot of work on this in seasons past. You've written some really cool stories on female front office members, female administrators throughout minor league baseball. This is not something new. You heard Justine mention a few people, and I mentioned a few people who have been involved at the major league level in administrative roles, people who are, even on the player development side or the baseball administration side. In minor league front offices, obviously that's much more business-oriented, but there's a lot. I know Visalia has a female general manager, for example. Pulaski has a duo of female administrators in the front office. Just kind of tell us a little bit about the community of women in these roles throughout minor league front offices.
Yeah, minor league baseball, as you guys know, working in a front office is a subculture in and of itself. So all the women who work in those front offices, you could say, is I don't know, a subculture within a subculture, but it is an increasingly large group, and it's only getting bigger. And I don't see any change in that trend, even in the time since I've been covering the industry and attending industry events. My first one was 2007 Winter Meetings. There's just a higher proportion of women working in minor league front offices every year. And I think on the whole, it's a pretty open industry. It's because it is, you have to prove yourself regardless. You have to show you can work those hours and kind of dedicate your lives to the job, especially during the season. So there's no real gender distinction with that basic qualification. But there still is obviously the stereotype of sports is men. Men is sports. So there's been a lot of progress made, I think, especially here in the 21st century, in terms of increasing the ranks of women in minor league baseball. And I'm not sure if that's the result of a specific industry initiative as much as just women throughout sports in general and throughout the American professional ranks in general increasing. So it's not something I expect to see change anytime soon, just like we wouldn't expect to see a change in American society.
And before we were on, we were talking a little bit about a group therapy session you had. You got to sit in on about women in sports and women in baseball in particular. What was, without spilling any secrets or anybody's stories that didn't want to get told or anything like that in that kind of setting, what was discussed there, and what is kind of the future, or what were they saying they think the future is of females in baseball, and specifically with the minors?
Yeah, this was at the promo seminar, which I attended earlier in October. I sat in on a group therapy session moderated by Aaron O'Donnell of the Sacramento River Cats, and it was called Help a Sister Out, and was along the lines of a place for women to gather and talk about issues facing women who are dedicating their lives to working in minor league baseball. And I asked beforehand, hey, can I sit in on this? I'm just interested in the perspective. And they were cool with it. I even got a round of applause, myself and the other man in attendance, for braving a room full of women, which I don't think really takes much bravery. It's,
no.
I like women. So it was an interesting discussion to sit on, because I really was interested in from their perspective, what are the issues you're facing. And one of the first things they started talking about was there's not really too many barriers for entry into the industry, but how do you not get pigeonholed as marketing and community relations? Those are the jobs that women seem to, get steered toward and or gravitate toward. And there was a general discussion of, well, we might want to be assistant general managers, and the career track that we may start out at or get pigeonholed within doesn't give us the experience in sales and operations in which to really then become an assistant general manager and a general manager and positions of power within the front office. So I think that's a really interesting point. And I think a lot of what was said was just it's about being assertive, easier said than done, for all of us really, but kind of making sure you're in communication, with the people you're working for and under, saying these are the goals I want, and not to sell yourself short because it's not necessarily expected of a woman to want that kind of job. And I think a lot of maybe the obstacles or discrimination that's faced is not overt, but more just an assumption that that's not something a woman would want to do. So that was definitely one of the main issues. And then they were also talking about, the broader stereotypes from the outside world of a woman working in baseball, and the cleat chaser stereotype, and getting pigeonholed as someone who's there just because they love the players and they think that, you get to see a lot of cute young men in uniforms. And obviously there was a lot of offense taken at that stereotype, and the assertion maybe that men in their own way are even more interested in the players in that way, at least from the perspective of fanboys and thinking it's really cool to be around those players, and don't make it a gender thing.
There's a lot of interesting stuff. There's so many different roles that women have already filled and are continuing to fill throughout minor league baseball. And even as far as radio broadcasters, we know that there are a couple of teams that have lead and assistant radio broadcasters that either are female broadcasters or have been in seasons past who have gone on to do other things. But it's really cool. It's one of those things that we're happy to be able to talk about. The same way that we talked about other barriers that were broken earlier this season, this is a really neat thing for us to dive into as well. Ben, let's transition a little bit and talk about, we talked last week at some length about a refresh for the Hickory Crawdads, who have gotten a sort of new look. It's a refreshed logo and identity rather than a rebranded. We kind of went over that thing, but there have been a whole set so far of teams that have come out with kind of tweaked looks. looks. Nobody's really dived into the whole brand new identity thing, but Sacramento, Charleston, West Virginia, some of the teams with new looks with some refreshed stuff.
Yeah, I wrote an article about this that ran on MILB.com last week, because really, where else would it run? Yeah, there, as you said, we have not had any complete rebrands yet, and it's kind of been a fun discussion to have over what constitutes a rebrand versus refreshing a pre-existing mark and rejuvenating, reviving. A lot of times these words are used interchangeably, I guess, so long as you get the retweet. And so we've got a lot of changes, but none that really merited like a story on its own. So we've just been kind of rounding them up. And I think one that got a lot of attention, at least regionally, is the Sacramento River Cats with the Sacktown logo. It says Sacktown over the state of California, and two bridges are silhouetted on the state of California, San Francisco's Golden Gate Bridge and Sacramento's Tower Bridge. So it's a way to be very specific to Sacramento by saying Sacktown across the front, but also via the state of California and the two bridges, San Francisco and Sacramento, cementing the relationship between the San Francisco Giants and their affiliate, the AAA Sacramento River Cats. So I think that's a pretty good one, and a really good incorporation of regional pride and major league affiliation. And yeah, so there's been a whole a mix of stuff. Tyler, I know you mentioned that you were a big fan of the West Virginia Power
Yes.
Ultimate logo. Yeah, you said that yes so vociferously.
It's really cool. West Virginia they've got a really cool identity. I mean, they've incorporated the old Charleston Charlies logo as one of their primaries, and even in doing so and doing a throwback logo as one of their current, one of the main images of their identity. They've done a really good job too incorporating the concept of power. It's one of those very kind of new age, almost like the 90s theme of naming teams after abstract sorts of things, or not naming teams in plural form. I mean, a lot of what we saw in the 90s into the 2000s. Power is not an easy thing necessarily to project as a logo, but they do it with the lightning bolt and, being obviously a big mining community and all that kind of stuff. This one is an interlocking WV for the West Virginia Power, but the V is sort of in negative space, and it also incorporates a lightning bolt. I think it's just really, really simple and really well done.
Yeah, it is well done, and that's one of the few I've seen this year done by Brandiose. Studio Simon did the Hickory Crawdads rebrand, and I think they were involved with the Charleston River Dogs refresh, as we'll call it. And then, interesting enough, the Ogden Raptors, who did I guess we'll call it a refresh. That logo was designed by the New Era Cap Company.
This was something I was going to ask you about.
Yeah, that was done for free with the kind of business arrangement that New Era thinks it's financially viable for them to design a new logo for a team for free and then reap whatever money goes into the design costs on increased cap sales. So I don't think you could hire New Era if you were doing a complete rebranding, because it would obviously involve so much more than the cap. But if you're wanting to do a logo that is cap-based, then you can go to New Era directly. And actually, before I talked to Dave Baggett, the president of the team, I hadn't realized that was possible. And him being the president of a Pioneer League team, rookie level, obviously not the kind of team that has too much money at its disposal, being it's such a small market, short season. He was elated at this idea that they could freshen up their logo, get a new primary logo, and not put any money toward the design cost. And he also told me that one of the alternate caps, which has a claw coming from the O, he originally wanted a drop of blood coming off the claw, but it was deemed family friendly. He was hinting that he might try to get a special edition, private use only blood from the claw cap. So we'll see about that.
Well, and that's just, I was just going to say real quick, Sam, I had never, and you kind of answered it there, Ben, but I had never heard of that before. And Ogden, I mean, their past logo sort of looked like it was drawn by a grade schooler, and this one is very much a modernized refresh. But I had never heard of New Era or a merchandising company coming out and being the ones to do design like that. I just found that fascinating.
Yeah, myself as well. And, I've been covering this stuff for quite a number of years, and it's easy to get a little I enjoy it, but it's easy to get a little jaded. Like, here we go again. Same old, types of quotes from the same people designing the logos. And you kind of start to think, that, not necessarily that you know it all, but that you know how the game works. And then something like that, it's just like, I didn't know that. It's good. It's good to come across those things in work and in life that, we never know it all. In fact, we know so little.
I was just going to say, wasn't the drop of blood deemed not family friendly by his own family?
By his own son, yeah.
By his son, who would be less mature than his own father.
You think it would be the other way around, like 12-year-old kids, like, Dad, it would be awesome.
should put some blood on it.
Yeah.
And his son's like, no, middle-aged dad. I think we really need to think that we are in an industry in which the primary component is affordable family entertainment, and the violence implied by blood on the claw is not something a family-friendly audience would appreciate.
They're raising very forward-thinking kids in Ogden, I guess.
Yeah, I was going to say maybe it's the next Darren Ravel type person, next marketing manager when he's only 12.
Ben, let's talk about some more stuff that's coming up on the blog. We, at length over the last few weeks, have discussed kind of your final pieces that have come to the site, but there's a ton of stuff that's still going up to the blog. Give us an idea of what is there most recently and what is on the way here shortly. bensbiz.mlblogs.com.
Yeah, on the blog, I visited 35 ballparks this year and really try to get a lot of unique material out of every visit. And to be quite honest, it's a lot for me to keep up with. And I do a pretty good job throughout the season of finishing one of my road trips on the blog and with my website articles before moving on to the next one. But as the summer we got deeper and deeper into the summer and the season, it just all kind of piled up. And the good aspect of that is it's October and I'm not dealing with that kind of, what do you write about in October feeling. I'm still living in the past every day, finishing up all my road trip coverage on the blog. Had 2 Nashville posts appear this week, detailing my visit to First Tennessee Park, giving a lot more detail than the original article I wrote. And then I'll move on after that to my last road trip of the season, New England, and document all that in blog form, 7 different ballparks there. So it's frustrating to me from a personal perspective to kind of want to psychologically break from the season and say, okay, I did that. But I do appreciate having something to write about every day and still being involved in what I look like is my annual project of doing all the best road trip content I can, and it's still going. And right now my goal is to get it all done before the MLB postseason ends, because then technically we're still in some kind of season. And that's the goal. But Ben's Biz blog, check it out. New ballpark writings detailing my 2015 road trips, several times a week for the next several weeks until it's finally all done.
bensbiz.mlblogs.com. Benjamin is on Twitter as well. He is at bensbiz there. And as always, just bringing the know-how, bringing the noise, bringing the funk. What?
Yeah, I bring it all.
Thanks, man.
Hey, thank you.
Big thanks to Justine Siegal. Big thanks to Benjamin Hill for joining us here on the 29th edition of the Show Before the Show podcast, which you can find on iTunes. You can rate, review, and subscribe to the show there. You can get in touch with us, podcast at milb.com. We're going to experiment with a whole bunch of different cool concepts and ideas and segments for the offseason. We may well do a mailbag type of thing. So if you've got questions, thoughts, comments, concerns about prospects or anything else in the world of minor league baseball, send them there or tweet them at us. Sam is at Sam Dykstra, MILB. I am at Tyler Mon, and Minor League Baseball is at MILB as well. You can follow us there. You can follow us on Instagram. You can follow us on Facebook. You can like us. You can do all kinds of stuff. I think we're on Friendster.
Yeah, or everybody back home in New England is getting in an uproar over Bill Belichick's MyFace, InstaFace.
InstaFace.
Yeah.
That was the latest one, right?
He's been doing this for years. It's a shtick. Let's just all stop buying into the shtick. He's not our dad who doesn't understand how this fancy technology works.
Did you hear he combined the 2 social network names?
Yeah.
I can't believe it. InstaFace. You can follow MILB on InstaFace.
You can follow. If you find us on InstaFace, please follow us there. We're not aware that we're there yet, but please follow us there. And please just in general, not even in a technological way, just like us.
Yeah, just like
us.
We crave your approval.
Favorite us. Do us all in the real world.
You can you can do all that there. You can also find the podcast at MILB.com. Elsewhere on the site, you can vote now in the 2015 Milby Awards, the best of this year in minor league baseball. You can vote for best offensive player, breakout prospect, starting pitcher, reliever, top play, top game, top farm system, all kinds of good stuff. So you can vote now at MILB.com. And you can also, of course, make sure to check out this year's organization All-Stars, which we've got 4 up up on the site right now, and we have more on the way this week. Arizona Fall League underway. Venezuelan Winter League is underway. The Mexican Winter League is underway. I believe the Dominican Winter League gets started this week. Australian Baseball League gets started next week. So while you're watching the Major League playoff games, there's a whole ton of other baseball to follow. And, of course, the AFL getting started. We've got box scores, game days, all kinds of stuff up on MILB.com as well, so you can follow how your favorite players are doing in the AFL. And, man, I think that's it. That's it. That's like more complicated than ending an episode in July. We've got so much.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, but this is as packed a show as you can have in mid-October.
Love it.
We were expecting when we started this, so this is good.
All kinds of fun. And until next week, we're going to be narrowing things down in the Major League races, which by this time next week we may know basically the World Series matchup if we have quick championship series, right? We could be getting close.
We could see. I'm not going to...
That is nuts.
Yeah, after making my World Series prediction of the Pirates, I'm not willing to say anything about this postseason anymore. So
I'm picking the Fresno Grizzlies to win the World Series this year.
That would be a better bet than the Pirates. They have a trophy.
They served me well with my last prediction, so I'm going to take the Grizzlies.
Yeah, there you go.
Until next week, we'll talk to you guys then.